I am David Hickton, the founding director of the University of Pittsburgh Institute for Cyber Law Policy and Security, which we call Pitt Cyber. Before that, I was the United States Attorney in Pittsburgh during the Obama administration, where we did a lot of cyber work. I've had a wonderful private practice career, and more recently, while at the University of Pittsburgh, I took a leave of absence upon request to help the U.S. Congress do coronavirus oversight. I'm here today because we're embarking on an exciting adventure between Trinity and the University of Pittsburgh and a joint MOU to address safe applications of artificial intelligence. We have allowed ourselves, or benefited from, the fact that the digital platform underpins everything we do every day. And in large measure, we have been flying the plane as we build it. So there's a shortage of policy on what are the implications of this. With regard to AI, which is relatively recent, and particularly the generative AI versions of it, the speed of the technology improvements is so staggering that it is often upon us before we have time to catch our breath. And so while artificial intelligence has many magical applications, there are also some potential pitfalls and pratfalls and deleterious consequences. So what we're trying to do is place ourselves in the position to protect the public in many cases, but also to not hold back innovation, but enhance innovation through smart and reasonable discussion about possible regulations. It's fundamental that knowledge is central to our lives. Knowledge is power. And if we have incorrect facts and information, it's hard to make correct decisions. We've always operated off a common set of operative facts, even when we were debating policy. And what has happened with regard to the internet is we are now in an avalanche of information coming at us at a staggering speed. Much of it's coming from unknown and untested sources. And so we have struggle evaluating the accuracy of this information, which is essential. Obviously, from time to time, the information circulated is innocently false. But what is really of concern is when someone uses digital tools to spread intentionally false information. The reason is that the digital platform allows you to spread it at such length and width, at such speed and concentration, that it is almost difficult to catch it and retrieve it. Because the original information is much more powerful, especially when circulated, than the correction. There's two really good examples that people will identify with. The first was the COVID pandemic. So there's disinformation online that the pandemic didn't exist, that it was created for political purposes. There's disinformation about the use and efficient and efficacy of personal protective equipment. There's certainly tremendous disinformation now being circulated about vaccines by the anti-vax movement. This clearly and obviously impacts public health. Millions and millions of people died during the COVID epidemic. It was not created for political purposes. It was to be avoided. We needed worldwide cooperation because it was threatening everybody. The COVID pandemic was real. Another example of the recent fires in Los Angeles. There was tremendous disinformation circulated with respect to those fires, with respect to cause, with respect to how they were being addressed, with respect to whether people should evacuate. And so the ability of people to use that type of disinformation in a public health crisis or a natural disaster is real. So I'm not optimistic that we're going to reach a consensus towards government regulation to deal with this problem. That's why I believe that it's more likely that the solution is going to come led by academic institutions, universities, think tanks in partnership with people of goodwill and other stakeholders who recognize that it's essential that we operate based upon truth. I hold the view that inaction is unacceptable and that we cannot give up on this effort. It's difficult, but it's also not new. It's just more intense now. Disinformation itself, people telling lies, has happened before, and it happened in the pre-digital age, and we certainly didn't give up then. We recognized the value of having accurate information and the virtue of telling the truth. Both have been true forever. The fact that it is now more complicated and more difficult should not dissuade us, and the consequence of failing to deal with it would be disastrous, in my opinion, because I don't understand how we can have a fully informed electorate in a democracy if they're deceived, if they're misled by information that is false. And as I said earlier, when you come up with public health or a disaster or a national emergency, it is absolutely essential that we can trust the information that we receive. The erosion of trust and the effect on community polarization is an elevator shaft with no bottom if we do not cure this problem. And so there's not only a requirement that we address it, it's essential that we solve it. I personally believe that we will overcome this, but I'm really certain, based upon history's lessons, that university leadership, to isolate and give examples of where and when this can harm us, and to sort of game out solutions and create exemplars of what we can do to deal with it in the absence of government participation or in the existence of complicity by government leadership. We want to get back to the point where we restore trust, we restore confidence in institutions, we eliminate polarization, we reduce fear and anxiety, and we eliminate the liar's dividend for the political leadership. That's the goal. So it's clear why there's resistance to this, because some benefit. There is no such thing as alternative facts. There is no such thing as fake news. There is no such thing as post-truth. These are fictions that have been created by people who want to say, I have my version of facts and you have your version of facts. No, there are facts. You have your version of what we're going to do about those facts. I have my version of what we're going to do about those facts. But we have to start at a foundation point and address facts. And we are disabled in that endeavor if we are victims of disinformation. The great fear I have is that people give up and they think their efforts are futile, and that they surrender and they turn away because they just don't think it matters. It matters. It matters. It affects our lives every day. And whether you are a conservative who believes in limited government, or you are a liberal or progressive that believes in more government, and I have friends in both camps, it matters that you participate. When you see declining voter participation in countries where people don't have to vote, that is an indicator that people don't have faith in the process, that it doesn't matter, it's not worth the trouble to cast the ballot. And when you attack institutions, the only reason to attack institutions, whether it's journalism, government, the courts, the police, law enforcement generally, when you use disinformation as a tool, which is so insidious and makes those attacks so effective, what conclusion can we draw from those attacks and the use of disinformation as a tool other than you don't want to be accountable. And we absolutely need accountability. And how do I give accountability to those that I elect to lead me unless I have facts and truth? And if I have no choice but to deal on the internet, and the internet is this avalanche of information coming at me at warp speed, where I have to evaluate it without the same tools I use when I'm evaluating information that's coming interpersonally, that's a problem. You know, people say that it's free speech intrusion to be talking about any regulation, and it's a free speech intrusion to categorize something as disinformation. And I'm certainly not in favor of the government being the arbiter as a czar of what is fair and what is not fair, and I'm not in favor of limiting free speech. The trouble was, it used to be that false information put you on the margins, and we used transparency as the best antiseptic to establish that someone was not to be trusted because they were untruthful. Now we've removed that screen, and it's not going to work for us long term. And it's especially not going to work if we care about our children. We have to make sure that the regulators and the policymakers are willing to create levels financially, and you know, it's important to do risk analysis and sector analysis. What may be bad for one application might be okay for another, depending on who the users are and the sophistication of the users. Now that's difficult, hard work, and it's a slog, but it's worth it and important, and I would argue essential. What I would say is, if you care about your children, if you care about free elections in a democracy, if you care about community building and eliminating fear and anger, mistrust, polarization, and you would like to operate upon the basis of a common set of operative facts, invest in us.